Okay, how you doing? All right. Okay, how you doing? Okay. Yeah, good. You? Okay. Yeah. How you doing? Okay. You all right? That's all right. You're doing it. Okay. Yeah, you. Don't remember doing it. All right. All right. All right. You're doing well.
Hello. I'd like to welcome you all here today in what is an incredibly exciting day for Salford City Football Club. And before we move on with the rest of the questions and things that we have to say, we'll please point you towards this video that's going to play behind us.
We've had a break, I think. My early years in Manchester was all about living in Salford, so I'm really excited to be part of it now. I've been waiting for a while for it to happen because when obviously the lads got involved with Salford, we all spoke about us all being involved, but you know, it's been 5 years of trying to get the team in Miami going, and now it's finally on its way. Now I'm able to get involved. Seeing the stories, seeing what they've done with the club, the stadium, and obviously having Peter as a huge part of this. It's a special group of people. To now be part of this incredible team, it's going to be exciting. We all have ambitions and we all have goals, and you have to have big ones and reach for the sky. Salford, it's where I grew up really, so I've got such great and fond memories, and when all of us are sat watching our team, it's going to be a proud moment.
Okay, so I mean, 4 or 5 years ago, the introduction of us into Salford City came out of a commitment for us to obviously, beyond our football careers, commit to do things together, to try and, wherever possible, have an impact. And I think obviously our playing careers together were so successful. And it was conversations that we all had 5 or 6 years ago that we were going to look into club ownership, and we wanted to be part of something that meant something to us. And you know, David's just mentioned up there about Salford. Our football livelihoods were spent in Salford at the Cliff Training Ground at Littleton Road, a mile away from where our current stadium is now. And we felt as though we needed to go back to the beginning, to our roots, and something that meant something to all of us. And David was initially asked to come in, as we all discussed it 4 or 5 years ago, but because of timing, because of obviously the project in Miami, which he has alluded to, it wasn't possible. But obviously that situation has now been resolved, and he now enters Salford City Football Club as a 10% shareholder. We are 50% shareholders jointly with Peter Lim currently. And we've applied to the FA today to enter into the formal process of accepting David as a shareholder, so that basically ourselves take over the majority of control of the club at 60%, where Peter will retain 40%. Peter will continue to provide the guidance for us that is essential. His experience as a business person, someone who's invested obviously in sports projects, football clubs through the last 10-15 years, and also to provide financial stability for the football club, which is absolutely essential. I think there are obviously many different discussions that happen around ownership models of football clubs, but one of the things that always gets mentioned is that more football people should be involved in football clubs. And in terms of our ownership of Salford City, we have 6 people who are passionate about football, who've displayed that over a period of 30 years, who are obviously building their knowledge in now different aspects of football in respect of coaching international teams, not just in the men's game but in the women's game. Nikki obviously is an academy director at Manchester United. We have various media roles and had coaching roles in the past, and we continue to build. And David obviously brings varied experiences from his playing days, being someone who played obviously in Europe and over in America. He obviously has entered into club ownership himself, and we're learning obviously post-football career about obviously the sport and business and the connection that needs, but Peter provides that stability and guidance for us in respect of the rest of it. David isn't with us today. If you remember when we announced our introduction to the football club 4.5 years ago, obviously we were nervous about the fact that it breaks out once it goes into sort of the, once we go through the process, you have to tell obviously a lot of people. So the FA have to do their due diligence, and then multiple people would know. So I think it's right that we announce it on our terms today, where we can answer your questions, we can make our statements, knowing full well that there is a process to go through, and we can't be presumptuous that he obviously will be accepted, but we're obviously very, we're confident he will be accepted, but we can't be presumptuous about it. David will come to Salford within the next 2 or 3 weeks. David will attend a game at the earliest possible opportunity that the FA go through their formal process and accept him. And like I say, I think we're going to open it up to the floor now in terms of answering your questions, any questions you may have in terms of obviously the obviously change in ownership that we have at Salford City Football Club.
Sorry, when you say he's going to come in the next 2 or 3 weeks, do you know when that is going to be?
We don't quite know how long it will take. We know how long it took for ourselves, but we don't know how long it will take for the FA. We've applied actually today, so obviously the FA are seeing the documentation for the first time today. David has signed documentation, as you would expect, as we did 4 or 5 years ago, but then you have to enter into the formal process to be accepted as a fit and proper owner, and we're hopeful it'll pass that test.
Gary, what's your ultimate ambition then for the club, David coming in? What's the end game?
There is no way out of a football club. Once you go into a football club, it's a commitment. We have committed to this football club. We've committed our own money, we've committed our own time. We've put millions of pounds of our own money into this football club. And our end game is to get it as high as possible, to create the best possible football team that we can, to create the best possible atmosphere in the ground. There are other values that we want to try and we have met. So we obviously introduced our women's team this season. We had an academy started 18 months ago. We've committed. We are the cheapest ticket in the National League. We are the cheapest season ticket in the National League. So we have, wherever possible, we've grown our fan base from 150 coming average every week to 2,500 in the space of 4 years. It's well above and beyond where we ever expected to be. We didn't expect to be in the National League so quickly, but I have to say that we are risk takers. We are bold. Peter gives us that ability to be bold as well in respect of what his thinking is in terms of making sure that we try and progress to the Football League in the quickest possible time. We obviously know how difficult that's going to be. We've had major battles over the last 3 or 4 years to win promotions. It's not easy. You see clubs all over the world spending money and that aren't successful. So we spend money at our level. We sometimes get criticised for that, but we think of it as being, we could put our money into many different things, but we've chosen to put it back into a football club in the northwest of England, and we think that is a positive. And the end game is that we want to try and progress the football club as much as we possibly can. We're in the first 5 years of our ownership. So far it's been a success. We now enter into a new chapter in the next 3 or 4 years where we have a major fight on our hands to get into the Football League and get out of the National League, which is a major challenge.
Gary, did the six of you ever have a ambition and a dream initially to in some way run the club across the road, and when that obviously became apparent it was not going to happen, did you feel building something from the sort of bottom up was the way forward?
No, we never have had an ambition to run the club across the road in that sense. I think that from our point of view, that's the biggest football club in the world. You know, why would we, 1 year out of football, think that we could run that football club? It's not going to happen. Our ambition was to enter into our own project, our own football club, starting at the very bottom where our roots were, and to try and grow a football club from being the great work that had been done by the committee, many of whom are here today, over a 30, 40-year period when the club were in the Everstick North, and the continual hard work and struggle that the 14 committee members were putting in, year out. We went and asked the question, would you like us to enter the football club? Would you like us to be part of it? And the answer was yes. So we wanted to go in at a sort of level that, and most importantly with a club that meant something to us. I think club ownership is a natural progression for football players of today when they retire. I think it'll happen more and more. Obviously, there are some clubs who have football people within the boardroom, some clubs don't. And we feel as though we've got the right balance at Salford City with our ownership, with obviously the blend of ourselves and the football passion and knowledge that we have, allied with obviously the business knowledge of Peter.
You say you put millions of your own money. Are you realising anything from that yet, other than enjoyment? Presumably
Pain.
Yeah. Presumably in the long run, it's not a charity. It might be a passion project, but it's not a charity.
We haven't realised anything from it. I mean, there isn't a plan to realise anything from this. You enter into something like this. You are pumping money into a football club because you're passionate about it, because you want to do it, and absolutely there has been no returns whatsoever, and there won't be for any foreseeable future. This is not something that we enter into with the idea of getting money back from. If that happens in the future, then all good and well. We enter into this with the idea that we need to grow a football club in our own name, in our own values, in our own principles. We sat there for 6 to 8 months every Friday morning, 7 till 9 a.m, building the values of this football club because we wanted to build it in what we wanted it to be, and we could shape it. Obviously, there is a history there to this football club as well, and we're trying to marry the obviously ambition of what we are compared to obviously in terms of aligning it with the people and the passion that the people have who watch the football club and work within the football club.
David's got his club, obviously in Miami, and you've got the structure of this football club, got the women's team, you've got the academy. Down the line, you get time to get it.
There's no plans for that whatsoever.
Paul, maybe your name's been in the media over the weekend. Whatever happens at Oldham, or if something did happen at Oldham, would that have any implication for your ownership?
I don't think so. If something does happen, look, I've made no secret that one day I do want to get back into football in some form of coaching. If that's Oldham, I don't know. There's nothing to report on that. Whether it's in the next year, the next 2 years, whatever it may be. At some point, I do want to get back into football. Whether that will conflict with Salford, I don't really know the total implications of that yet.
Is that a bridge you cross as and when, or basically say you did end the management, Salford ended up in the Football League, it's just a bridge you cross as and when?
Yeah, I think so. I think something will have to be done. I'm not too clear what the rules are, but I'm sure it's something that will have to be looked into.
Can you confirm you are at all,
No.
I think for me, the sooner Scholes gets back into football, the better. I think he's very, very knowledgeable in football. I've been trying to get him back into football for a long time, and I think if he gets back in, the sooner the better, because whether it conflicts with Salford or not, we've all got our own individual jobs that we do, and we're all passionate about first and foremost, and I'm sure we'll find a way of making it work.
I think on the conflict point, I think it's important to know we've been through this before twice. obviously Nicky has a role as the Academy Director of Manchester United, and Ryan became manager of Manchester United for a period at the end of the season. And that we went through this process before. The reality of it is that we have a fantastic management team. None of us are involved in the day-to-day running and operation of this football club. It's run by the chairman, Karen, Chris, the sporting director, Graham, the manager, Andy, the secretary, and the other staff that we have at the football club. We're not hands-on day-to-day. In various points in the last 4 or 5 years, so when I was in Valencia for that 4 months, I made one call on Salford in the whole 4 months, didn't spend any time on it whatsoever. Maybe should have made more. You know, Nicky has a very, very minimal role in Salford because of his serious role at Academy Director at Manchester United. Phil and Ryan have really sat back in this last 12 months since they took the international roles. So we always knew that there would be individual interest during the period of us obviously owning the football club, and what happens is that other lads step up at the time where other lads fall back, and that's happened naturally over sort of 4 or 5 years. That there have been times where others will step up and, if you like, provide that ownership support. There's now 6 of us to be able to do that, which helps because obviously that, you know, I say Nicky and Ryan and Phil at this moment in time can't give any real input to Salford because they've got, like I say, very big roles that they've got that fulfilling obviously at international level and at Manchester United.
No, how difficult is it at times not to get involved with football at Salford, given the kind of know-how and experience and opinions that 5 years will obviously have?
You've never seen him in the box of a game.
To be fair, our experiences in the first 6 months at the club taught us a lot. If you remember, one of the big disappointments of the last 5 years was sacking a manager after 6 months at the football club. And at that time, Phil and Scholes were going down training with the team at times. They were in contact with the manager. I was in contact with the manager. I think we made a decision after that that basically we needed to stand clear of it. That we needed to act as owners and let the coach, let the coach pick the team, pick the tactics. So in terms of the input into the football side from the last sort of 4.5 years or 3.5 years since that happened, we really have sat right back. Of course, at times, you know, we're like commentators, if you like, at the side of the pitch, wanting, you know, you see things as a fan, you see things that happen, but we know how badly it goes if we start to, if you like, interfere, and we know how badly it goes in football in general if owners start to interfere in the football decisions at that level, in sort of what would be a detail level, so we just don't do it. We try and offer support where we can, but we do stay clear of it. I mean, I've been down to the training ground once this season as an example. You know, I think the rest of the lads maybe once. You know, we don't go down and get involved in that. It wouldn't be. It's not right. You know, the coach has to be the coach.
Gary, given that the club's sponsored by Super 6, how appropriate does it feel that the class of '92 Super 6 have now come together as co-owners?
I see what you're doing there. Bit of a brand link. Yeah, I mean, look. We're delighted with our sponsors and the work that we do with them. Super 6 have been fantastic with us over this last 6 to 8. It's actually a unique partnership in some ways in terms of how we work together as a club. The same with Peninsula, the same with Kitbag. We have very close relationships, and hopefully you're happy today.
Gary, just with David down to 6, let's say big personalities, all know a lot of football. How do you agree on anything when it comes to sort of stuff?
We don't.
I think, how do we agree on anything? I think, well, to be fair, things like, say, for instance, what are we there to agree on? We agree on, say, for instance, we talk about the investment decisions in terms of the money that we think the budget should be. We talk about the big things at the football club that actually don't involve what would be a lot of arguing in some ways. So, if you think about, obviously, which players the club brings in, that happens outside of our remit, really. So we don't have opinions on players that we bring in, opinions on that, because that's dealt with by the chairman, sporting director, manager, and scouts. I'm trying to think what we would potentially argue on that would be sort of a big thing, because the reality of it is we're there to provide guidance and sort of like an overall support. The direction of the club was set. You know, we built this document for over 6 to 8 months that sets out exactly what it is we want to achieve, the time we want to achieve it in, and then, you know, I am more hands-on operational with the chairman and the sporting director, because my time allows me to be that at this moment in time, because the other lads have got football roles. So it's only the big things like...
I think when you've also known each other since you were 12 years of age, you've been brought up together and what you would call a second family for many, many years, you become so alike in that aspect of the game that you just seem to agree with most of the things, 95% of the stuff anyway, and the other 5 Nev sorts out. So
Phil, how much, I mean, you've got the World Cup to prepare for. How much time do you actually spend thinking about sort of talking about it?
I don't, to be honest with you. My priority, yesterday I got back from Qatar, a 10-day training camp, and literally the only bit about Salford that I receive is the notifications during the game if we've scored or the opposition have scored, and I think that's the way it's got to be. I think Gary said it, along this next 20 to 30 years we're all going to be immersed in other aspects of our lives, and at the moment mine is focused on being England Women's Senior Manager, and I do take a step back. Yeah, we're on maybe a group WhatsApp where you get information, but that's the only bit of information that I get in terms of what's happening at Salford City, and obviously taking part in going to the odd game. I think I've been to 5 games in the last 12 months since I got the job, so you know it is well back in my priorities in terms of my focus is on 6 months' time managing a team in a World Cup.
Barry, could you see a day when I try to stop you in the mix zone again when you're owner of a Premier League club and being successful? Is that too far ahead, or could it eventually happen?
It feels like a million miles away, because at the moment when you obviously the challenge we're in to get into the Football League feels like a huge one. It is a huge one. Of course, our dream would be always to try and take the club as far as we possibly can, but I think the next step is just getting into the Football League. That was always the sort of base one, if you like, just getting into the Football League, and we know how difficult that is. It would be an absolute dream if we could become a Premier League club. We often look at, say, which club could we be? Look at, say, Bournemouth, who've got maybe 10,000 people watching them, and you have that ambition to think, could you be a Bournemouth? Now, Bournemouth have got a rich history, they've been there a long time, done a lot, but you think of the size of a club like Bournemouth in the Premier League, and how they're competing, how they're running their club, how they work it, the manager, and the fact he's been there for a long time. We see that type of club being an example to us if we were looking into the far distance. But it'd be a big mistake for us to think beyond Halifax away on Saturday. It's going to be -3, and it's it's a dogfight to get out of this division, and we've got to think about that.
Have you got any anecdotal evidence, Gary, of taking any supporters from United at all?
What we do now know is that our crowd last Saturday against Gateshead at home, we brought 50 people with them, was 2,100. And that was when Manchester United were at home at 3 o'clock. So we've now got fans that are sticking with us. We've got over 1,000 season ticket holders. We know it's not just a case of what we were accused of in the first 6 to 8 months, probably the first 2 or 3 years, where they were basically just United fans coming for a peak. Now it's more than that. When you're averaging over 2,000 when United are at home on a Saturday, we don't know where the fans are coming from. Is it City? Is it United? Is it Oldham, Bury? Are they new fans from Salford who just want to sort of support their own club? That's what we'd like to think, that we're connected with the Salford people, and they want to support. It's the biggest city in this country that haven't got a Football League club, we believe, in terms of population. So from our point of view, that was one of the big elements of what we thought initially as well. Salford's a proud city, so they are sticking with us. They are coming back to watch us. That's obviously down to the fact that they're enjoying it. I think there's an affordability issue, and also the fact that we create a great experience on match day. So I think there's many different reasons why, but we don't know where they're coming from specifically. We don't ask them.
And given what you just said, and given what we know about why you started the club in the first place, and given what we know about what the Premier League is like and parts of the Premier League that you don't like, does it really matter whether you ever get to the Premier League? That was never really the aim, was it?
No, it was never really the aim, to be honest with you. This started out of a discussion to set up an academy, to set up a soccer school. We then started thinking about, if you think about soccer schools, they go Monday to Friday in school holidays or summer camps, but they don't have a goal. You send the kids home on a Friday, there's nowhere for them to go in terms of where's the game. So it started off with a conversation on the train between me and Ryan about a soccer school. Ryan was still playing at the time, United was just about to retire. And then we extended that conversation, everybody got involved, and we said, well, the best thing to do would be to have a small team. Then you start to think, well, if we have a small team, we need to make sure that it's got good facilities, it's got a good level of football. we can compete, and then it starts to grow, the idea, it becomes bigger. And you're right, there was never an ambition at the very beginning to have a Premier League club. Because if we'd have done that, the money that we've spent on Salford, we'd have probably gone and bought a team in League One. You know, if it was about, if you like, the quickest route to the Premier League, the money we've invested into Salford City, we could easily have taken over a League One club, there's no doubt about that. We wanted to start with something that meant something to us.
Because the higher you go, the harder it is to hold on to the values, surely.
We wrestle with that all the time. That, you know, when we meet probably quarterly, the idea of you want to try and be successful, you want to try and get into the Football League, you've got National League, which has got an average probably height of 6 foot per player, and you want to try and bring 17, 18-year-olds through at the same time. So you are wrestling always with your values versus what you want in terms of success, and that's something that obviously is something we're always conscious of. You're right.
Gary, given the ambition that you're speaking of and everything, the values that you want to retain and where you are in Moor Lane, is that where you envisage you've been 5 years in the project, where you're going to be in 5 years' time in that area? I mean, obviously it's the new stadium revamp, 5,000 plus now and everything else.
Yeah.
There's probably only so much you can do in that area in terms of developing.
Yeah.
What's the plan?
We are compliant at the moment. So what we decided to do out of our experiences, we went to sit down with Wimbledon, with Fleetwood, with Fylde, with Morecambe. All the clubs have been on that journey, if you like, up through the sort of, you know, FC United have built a stadium. So we went and decided that we needed to do it at once rather than doing it in sort of compartmentalising the stadium. So we did it all in one hit, and it's now actually, well, we're not quite compliant. We're a whisk away from being compliant for League Two, just barring the changing rooms being sorted out at the moment. We're not far away from League One. So actually we've got a stadium that, to be fair, for the next 4, 5, 6 years, depending, you don't know how long you're going to be there. We hope we get promotion year on year out, but we know that's not reality. We're okay for a few years yet where we are, and then obviously we have to start discussions. You know, we always speak about these things. We always meet about these things and plan these things. And obviously we've got a really good council at Salford that are supportive of the football club, the mayor, the CEO. We know them very well, and we have discussions with them regularly about the growth of the football club and where it's going to go in the future.
Well, can I just, obviously there's real strength in the collective as a six, but obviously you've all gone out on your own tangent, building Brian. Why do you want to get into management? You're so high profile, you're there to be shut out, and Gary had his own difficulties. You look at some of the really, really prominent ex-professionals, you know, around the difficulties now. Why do you want to immerse yourself in that?
I haven't actually said management, I just said coaching. Management could be a part of that, I suppose. The media stuff, I've half enjoyed doing it, but it's not the same as being involved with a football club every day, I suppose. I suppose, you know, when you leave school for 20 years, you're trying to achieve something all the time. And for this last 5 or 6 years, that has gone away. And I feel if I get back into football, then I've got something to achieve again.
You feel you've got a lot as a coach to give? You think you've got a lot? Anything else, whether it's senior pros or at younger age?
Yeah, we'll see. I think I have, but you don't really know till you do it, I suppose.
It's the next best feeling to playing, you know, coaching. You know, you're never going to recreate playing the highs that you get, the lows. It's the next best thing.
Is that a big thing for you, Brian, replacing that?
Yeah, it's difficult to replace because you retire at a relatively early age when you're playing. You know, you've still got a lifetime in front of you, so you're looking for that next best thing. Some people, it's not their thing, and that's fair enough. But I think it's the next best. Well, so far, my experience, you know, when you were playing, you lost, how low you were, but the highs that you get when you win, or you know, good coaching session, or you played well, maybe not. It's the next best feeling. So you can see, you know, you used to watch managers. Why would you do it? But you know, now you're starting to understand, and you don't want to be 60 and think, you know, what if I would have. So
there's a difference between being a coach and a manager. There's all the coaching, I can understand that, but being a manager, you have to sit in front of media. You've got to take the flak when things are not going well.
yeah, it is. But I think when you're a coach, then you know the frustrations that you have as a coach, that makes you want to then become a manager. You know, because no matter how close you are, the coach and the manager, you always do it differently. And yeah, like I said, it's the next best feeling. Of course, coaching and manager is different. Not a lot of pressure really when you're a coach, but there's a lot of frustration. Whereas when you're the manager, there's not as much frustration because you know it's your decision in the end.
Ryan, do you see yourself managing them for the next, whatever, 10, 15 years, if possible? Do you see the long-term thing? Or
Wales?
No, whoever, you know, in management.
I'll see how I go with Wales first.
Yeah.
But that's my main sort of where my concentration is at the moment.
Do you miss day-to-day? Obviously, being an international manager is different from being on the...
Yeah, that is probably the frustration that you hear of managers who've been in it in a long period of time, and you know I've only been in it a year, so it's not that bad at the moment. This gap from November to March is frustration. You know, it's frustrating. Once you get into the games, then it's not really that bad. But this is a long gap, so you can understand the frustration. But also there's the pluses with that. You know, where you can more or less lead a good lifestyle and go on holiday at Christmas, go and watch Salford City play at New Year's Day. So stuff like that, you know, and it's just weighing up the pros and the cons.
Is there an extra onus on guys like you who are so high profile to think very carefully about your moves, pick them as carefully as you can never plan obviously what's going to happen, but you know, a false step here can be so damaging, particularly given obviously your profile. Is that a big thought process for you when you take steps?
No, I don't think it can be. I mean, I think you've got a passion, you've got to go and do what you believe you can do. Have no regrets, like Ryan just mentioned there. And I think if you start thinking about your own profile, you become something you're not. I mean, I know these lads, like I said, a long time. I think all of us are humble and we can go and chat to people and have a drink with people and be one of the lads if you like. And you can't really worry about what your personality is away from yourself and what you are like to the press and fans. You have to just be true to yourself and do what you think, and you can't be intimidated by the fact that you might get slagged off a little bit, because it's happened in our football life many a time. But then obviously, like you say, when you go into management and coaching, you're right on the spotlight, and like I said, I think we're all got big enough shoulders to carry that a little bit of criticism.
I think if you look at the decisions that we've all made since we finished playing football, and we've all taken big risks, we could have easily sort of, if you like, sat back and not done things. You know, you think of Phil taking the job that he took at the time and the publicity around that. You know, Ryan obviously going into Manchester United, Nicky taking the academy director's role. You know, Paul Scholes on television. You know, you never would have thought that 5-6 years ago. You know, we've all taken risks, even sort of this hotel and what we've done in terms of sort of projects outside of football. We've always entered into things that bring in a high element of risk with it. And we're not going to sit back and sort of do nothing. We've had projects, I mean, we were talking yesterday, myself and Ryan, in a meeting outside of this. We had 2 or 3 projects that have failed this year in Manchester. You know, restaurants and things like that.
Nothing to do with me. Nothing to do with me.
You know, things that we have bumps along the way, and we make decisions that, to be fair, are risky, and we don't do simple things. You wouldn't enter into club ownership if you wanted to do a simple thing, or coaching. You'd get out of those 2 straight away if you were thinking of actually having an easy life. So we don't worry about that at all. In fact, I think if we didn't take risks, there'd be a big problem.
Paul, are you conscious of the fact that when you do go into management or coaching, there'll be particular scrutiny on you because you are such a brutal pundit?
Yep, I know that'll be part of it, won't it? Yeah, but you know, there's nothing I can do about that. I can't go and change my words. I've just said what I've believed over the last 4 or 5 years while I've not been playing. And if I go into coaching or management, as you say, and results aren't that good, then I've left myself open to a bit of stick, but I'm big enough to take it.
Why has it taken you so long? Because we see a lot of high-profile players who go straight into it. Presumably you've not been short of offers.
There's been a couple of things, I suppose, but nothing that's felt quite right. And
nothing high level? Like Steven Gerrard going off to Rangers?
No.
Frank Lampard at Derby?
No.
That seems odd.
Does it?
Yeah.
You think like Phil and Ryan's brains much, you think about their experiences and people that you know in football?
Why don't you say Gareth?
In fact, I'm the brain you should be picking. The last one of us to take a job halfway through a season.
No, yeah, cool. If something happens, of course, well, I speak to the lads all the time about football, not just the lads who are obviously in big jobs like Phil and Nicky. Obviously, Gary had his experience at Valencia, which will be vital to me, I think, and obviously Nicky with United as well. So, you know, if I go, I'm not short of options for people to ring for advice.
I think we're all going to break into sort of smaller groups anyway and do more things with you. So I think if you're comfortable, we'll wrap this up now and we'll enter into those small groups. I think Phil, Nicky and Ryan are going to go together, and myself and Paul, so we'll break up and do sort of separate bits together if that's okay with yourself, and you can ask us more questions. So thank you everybody for coming.
Thanks.
And
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh God, I'm stiffened up.